These are tramezzini, small finger sandwiches usually eaten as an appetizer, for the happy hour, or as a snack. The fillings are numerous, but the big star is this super soft bread. In the Italian stores, you can find this bread in this soft texture and rectangular shape. Considering that in the US it's almost impossible to find, with this recipe I tried to recreate it, obtaining a pretty close result. So if you want to know how I did it, just keep watching. In a bowl I add 3 cups of all-purpose flour and 1 teaspoon of salt. Then I mix them together right away, so it won't interfere with the proofing process. If the salt meets the yeast directly, it kills the good bacteria in the yeast that eats sugar and allow the bread to raise. In a measuring pitcher, I add 3/4 cup of whole milk and 3/4 cup of water. Then I add 1 teaspoon of sugar. I mix everything together, and then I heat it up in the microwave for 1.5 minutes. When the milk and the water are warm, I add 1.5 teaspoon of yeast, and I mix all together. Then I set it momentarily aside. In the microwave, I melt 4 tablespoons of butter. Then I add it to the flour so it can cool down, but still be slightly warm. The gentle heat is another factor that helps the yeast in the proofing process. I start forming the dough by pouring the milk into the flour. I will obtain a sticky and wet consistency. Here I am using my hands, but if you want, feel free to use a standard mixer. I knead for solid 5 minutes. When the dough comes together, I cover it with plastic film, and then I let it proof in the cold oven, but with the light on, for 2 hours. After 2 hours, this is the result that you should get. It's nice and airy. Now I am going to knead it again, and I'm going to give it a shape, and I will prepare it for a second proof. I will give the dough a couple folds, so it's going to be easier to make it into a cylinder. I roll it back and forth on the cutting board until I obtain an elongated shape. I work it until it fits in the loaf pan. I grease the pan and put the dough inside. I cover with plastic film and let it proof for other 30 minutes in the cold oven with the light on. When it's done proofing, I remove the plastic film and I bake it in the oven at 356 for 30 minutes. I remove it from the oven and I let it completely cool down. While the bread is cooling down, I start making the filling. Here I slice 4 slices of mozzarella cheese, and I try to cut them fairly thin. Then I cut them in half and I place them in a bowl. Then I slice a small tomato, and here I am going to remove the seeds of the tomato. You don't have to. It's just my preference because I don't like them. To me they are way too slimy. So I prefer to remove them, but you don't have to do it. I finish slicing the tomato. I remove the hard center on top of the tomato head, and then I place it in the bowl with the rest of the cheese. I season the filling with 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/8 of a teaspoon of pepper, 1 tablespoon of olive oil, and 1/2 teaspoon of dry oregano. Then I mix all together and momentarily set it aside. When the bread is completely cooled down, I cut the top so I can level the loaf. Then I start trimming so I can remove all the crust, so I can give it a nice squared shape. The main part needed is the center, with no crust around. I cut all the edges, but here I made a mistake and I slice this part way too thick. Now I cut the slices and they should be about half an inch each. And here I cut the edge in the way I should have done it at the beginning. And now I finished trimming all the rest of the loaf. After finishing trimming the top and the surroundings, I cut the slices and now I'm going to trim even the bottom. When the slices are in the way that I need, this means just the center part with no crust around, I cut the slices in half, and some I keep them in the rectangular shape, and some other ones I give them the triangular shape. Then I fill the tramezzini with the filling I previously made. In some of them I'm gonna leave them as it is, and in other ones I'm going to add a layer of mayo. Of course, these are just a few examples on how you can use this bread. Other fillings can be rucola and prosciutto, tuna and mayo, mushrooms and sausages, and cream cheese and zucchini, but it really goes by taste. The tramezzini can be eaten right away, but if you are making them in advance, you can preserve them in the fridge, cover with a wet but well squeezed kitchen towel, so they won't become dry and they will keep their shape. And this was my take on the tramezzini. I hope this video was helpful. Thank you so much for watching.